Welcome, everyone, to the Truth Traveler Radio Show. I'm Erin Dakins. I will be your guide tonight. And our guide is, where are we going tonight? We're going with a special guest who's a pretty cool guy. I'll bring him on in just a minute. But I want to first say thank you for bearing with me for last night. I had a little bit of a family emergency. My husband, Brad, was in pretty severe pain Monday and Tuesday. And I wasn't exactly sure what was going on. I thought I knew what it was, but I wasn't sure. So we took him to the emergency room last night, and sure enough, kidney stones would be the culprit. He still feels pretty bad because he's still got to pass the little boogers. So if you've ever had those before, you know how painful that can be. But he's doing okay. So anyway, that's where you got a rebroadcast last night. So thank you for being patient, and I appreciate you listening. Tonight is Wednesday, October the 2nd of 2013, and we're in the second day of the government shutdown, as I try not to laugh too hard because it's such a joke. The joke is Obamacare's kicked in, and I want to share something about that with you in a minute. But if you go to Drudge and you look, let me just read you a couple headlines. I'm not going to get into the articles because I want to bring our guest on. But here's one headline. Some Obamacare state websites see less than 1% sign-up rates. Next headline, Louisiana, 0 enroll. And then here's another one. Massive glitches persist as government blames high demand. Okay. We can see where everybody's going with Obamacare, which is not health care, trust me. It is not health care. It's not to keep you healthy. It's to keep you sick so that the pharmaceutical companies can continue to make more money and they can kill you deader than a hammer. Stay away from it. We just need to all opt out and not do it. Now, when we took my husband into the emergency room last night, and they take all your insurance information, because he is a fully 100% disabled veteran, and that's how we survive, he has full insurance through a TRICARE system. So those of you military, you know what I'm talking about. We won't even go into that. But anyway, didn't have any problems at the hospital. Sent us home. We were done, but we had to get 2 prescriptions filled. Now we go over to Walgreens. Well, Walgreens hasn't worked out their little thing with TRICARE, so they couldn't do anything, so they sent us to CVS. Now, this is almost midnight, okay? So they go over there and put it in the system. They couldn't fill his prescriptions because, as far as the computer knows at CVS, his member number's not active. He's not insured. So I assumed that there's some major glitches in the software for Obamacare. We'll wait and see. When he's feeling better, he's going to have to call TRICARE and deal with that. But that's the story of Obamacare so far. This evening, the government is still shut down. Yesterday, you guys probably heard about the World War II veterans that wanted to visit the World War II Memorial in Washington, D.C. And there was a wall put up, and they were blockaded, not allowed to. They threatened to arrest the World War II veteran. Well, today, a lot of World War II veterans showed up, and I don't remember his name. His last name is Kurt from Illinois. He's a Congress critter. But he made sure that those veterans got into their memorial, that donations and the veterans paid for, none of our government paid for. And there is a clip up on InfoWars, if you want to go look at it, that they are singing Amazing Grace at the World War II Memorial. So you go, World War II vets. And we're going to get into some more stuff as the show progresses through the month with Stuart Rhodes and then Brandon Smith, and some stuff that I want to do for Indiana for you guys around here, and I'd like for the other people in other states to do this too. So check out the Oath Keepers if you would. But right now we are going to bring in our guest. His name is Mark Howitt, and let me read you his bio. Mark Howitt is an independent researcher and documentary filmmaker, a musician, a record label operator under Archaic North Entertainment, and is also the founder of the activist group World Public Union, an activist resource and networking database. He has appeared on many alternative media outlets such as Press for the Truth, The Power Hour, The Truther Girls, Truth Broadcast Network, and many other notable sources to address issues that exist within the world. He's been making films since 2009, has become known for films which include New World Order, Domino Effect, and I put a link directly up to that on thetruthtraveler.com for you guys, because this is an absolutely phenomenal documentary. Trust me, you need to go watch it. It is phenomenal. in fact, it's one of the best ones I've seen, so that tells you how good it is. Where was I? Okay, Eye of the Illuminati, Sandy Hook, the documentary, The James Holmes Conspiracy, 2012 Revolution World Awakening, How to Kill a President, RFK, Bloodline Assassins, Malcolm X, By Whatever Means Necessary, The Formation of the Resistance, and others which have received millions of views on YouTube. This guy's phenomenal, so I want you to check his stuff out. I got links up on the site. On July 17th of this year, he left his hometown of Sudbury, Ontario, Canada, and put his life on hold to create a reality show called The March of Freedom. This included walking and traveling across eastern Canada to speak with as many people as possible in the communities he visited to directly identify the problems that affect people all over the world. While on the March of Freedom, he documented many events and went to the home of Canadian Prime Minister Stephen Harper, globalist, New World Order. Yes, okay. To deliver a letter written on Parliament Hill for the people of the world. There were several seminars and public discussions held in various cities and several radio podcasts. Interviews were also conducted. The March of Freedom was completed on September 5th of 2013 and is currently in the production development stages. Episodes of the March of Freedom will be available on his YouTube channel as well as other sites. Now, if you go to his YouTube channel, which is his name, Mark Howitt, Mark, and then Howitt, you'll be able to find a lot of these videos on there. Welcome to the show tonight, Mark.
Thanks for having me on, Erin.
Hey, I'm thrilled you could be here. I'm telling you, your New World Order Domino Effect, that you did an outstanding job. It's fantastic.
Thank you very much. I tried to identify as many problems as I could and try to nail it all in one shot, because I know a lot of documentaries focus on one or two subjects. So I tried to essentially talk a little bit about a lot of subjects, assuming that the viewer already knows about some of these problems, just to sum it all up and then offer some solutions to the problems that were discussed in the film. So that's the pun, I guess, for the domino effect, to take down the house of cards and stuff like that. So,
well, I do want to discuss this film, but I want to start with your march across Canada. Let's talk about that first, and we'll get into this film, because I want to kind of go through the film, because I want people to see what you laid out so well. And what really struck me as of the whole movie, the whole documentary, was that truly, you're right. You said something in there that is so profound and so fundamental, and yet we hear this all the time. But it struck me. We talk about the 1% all the time. The globalist elitists, the New World Order, the Illuminati, whatever you want to call them, the bankers. But you said in there, we are the 99%, Mark.
Totally. And that's the way it is. On the March of Freedom, when I was traveling across Eastern Canada, most of the people I talked to were aware of some of these problems that were discussed in the film, and other problems too that I came across on the journey. So a lot of people are actually aware in Canada, anyways. And I know in the United States there's a lot of people that are waking up over there too. All over the world, actually, there's you see revolutions happening and protests and rallies, like what's going on in Turkey, Brazil, Egypt, all that stuff. There's people that are mad at their government all over the world right now, and we're not going away. Put it that way.
No, we're not. And you're right. There are more and more people waking up now. And now we're at a critical juncture. As you know, the United States is in some major trouble. And unfortunately, you're kind of attached to the hip to us, as well as Mexico. We're kind of like the North American Union. Yeah. So, personally, I hope that if the government shut down, I hope they do crash the dollar, Mark. I am ready to reboot this country, because the theft and just the evilness, the darkness has got to stop.
Yeah, that's what it is. It's total darkness, total evil. It has to be evil for the world to exist the way it is, and we're okay with it. That's the scary thing. Most people are just totally okay with what's going on in the world, even though it's so critically harsh. And it affects everybody's life on the entire planet. It doesn't matter who you are. If you're involved in a financial system, the financial scandal, then your life is essentially a slave. That's what you are. You're working your job. You're getting money from your job, and then all the money you get from your job goes back to the system. They take all your money back. So they keep getting all the money while we work our jobs to keep the society going. So it's really the workers and the laborers and the people that are putting their efforts and their time into creating this world, and then they're the ones getting screwed in the end. So that's the catch-22, right?
It really is, because I was a wage slave. I mean, when I worked at the veterinary clinic for 23 years, you're a wage. I don't care I don't care if it's a factory. I don't care if you're a registered nurse working in a hospital. I don't care if you work for an insurance company. I don't care where you work. You're a wage slave. And that's because we're slaves. That's right. And this whole evolution thing, thank you, Darwin, that's about making people the slave class. That's what that's all about. So that's what people got to remember. Yeah. You know, if we're no better than the apes.
Pardon?
I said if we're no better than the apes, then we're a slave race. Okay?
Yeah, that was one mistake I actually made in one of my films. I regret putting it in there, was Eye of the Illuminati. It's a pretty extensive documentary, and I put a lot of time and effort to making that. It's longer than the Domino Effect film, but in that film I did discuss the evolution process and just how, like, the history of humanity, essentially. I went through the history of mankind to try to show people, like, how since in the Fertile Crescent, since farmers and people started gathering in different families together, and then they started communities and stuff like that, that's when you first start seeing the hierarchy and the slaves come into play, because you have somebody who's gaining profits from somebody. As soon as you create profit, that's when you have a slave. As soon as you're trying to profit off somebody else for doing anything, it doesn't matter what it is, if you're trying to profit, then that's essentially what creates the slave race, I think, because that's what's going on. People become lazy. We've become really lazy since a couple thousand years ago, that's for sure. Nobody really cooks anymore. They throw food in the microwave. They're always on the go.
Oh, not me, man. My oven and my stove get a workout. Hey, we got our first break, Mark, so we'll be right back after this commercial break, and you're listening to The Truth Traveler. Welcome back to The Truth Traveler. Our guest tonight is Mark Howitt. And here's a good website to go to. This is his official website. It is worldpublicunion.org. worldpublicunion.org. His YouTube channel is Mark Howitt. So check those out. There's links are up on the Truth Traveler, too, for you. So, check it out. Check out his documentaries. I'm telling you, you're a fantastic person to put these together. The way you tied, we can't go back to the march, but I can't help it. With the way you tie everything together is really fantastic, Mark. You have a gift for that.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it's something I got into just out of the whim, really, because I was a musician. That's what I've always wanted to do with my life is write and play music and tour and play shows and stuff and see different parts of the world. And after I started learning about some of the things that I started putting in my documentaries, I couldn't turn back. It's like when you jump in the rabbit hole, there's no turning back, That's what it felt like, for sure.
Huh. Interesting. Well, let's talk about your march. Well, let's talk about your March of Freedom, because I'm afraid we're going to get away from that, and we won't be able to talk about it. Okay. I know how things happen. What made you decide to do this?
There's a lot of reasons, really. But really, when you're sitting at home and you're seeing all this stuff happening on the news and you're researching, trying to find answers, and then you find the answers and you find out that the government is indefinitely screwing people, for lack of better words, and corporations are screwing people, and doctors and the pharmaceutical companies and the food companies and your local even your local government and people in your city council are screwing you over by putting fluoride in your drinking water and not removing it. Or there's so many reasons and so many. It just doesn't stop. You know what I mean? So when you're sitting at home and you know all this stuff, you can't just sit on that. I mean, you could self-destruct. I guess that's what you'd call it, if you just sat there and did nothing and just let it get to your head and let the stress get to you. but I just felt like I couldn't sit there and make documentaries and only do that. And I mean, I do activism stuff too. Like I was involved with the March Against Monsanto here in my town. I was one of the administrators for that, as well as the Occupy Sudbury when that happened here. I was the one who started the online group for it anyways. And so that's basically what I've been up to, is just trying to get active and trying to do something about it. But there just comes a certain breaking point where you can't just sit there anymore and know about this stuff and just you feel really helpless, you know, and that's how I felt. I felt totally helpless. I mean, I'm raising 2 children. They're very young. They're 4 and 6 right now, and I don't want them to grow up in the same world I do, that I've grown up in anyways. And I'm sure that I'm not the only one that thinks that way. I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that would wish for a better world for their children to grow up in and their grandchildren. I mean, we're borrowing this planet. It's not ours. We're just borrowing it temporarily, and we have to pass that on to future generations, and that's really important to think about when you go about your daily life, because the decisions that you make can alter the future. You know, every decision that you do make changes the future. So that's something that we should really think about, I think.
Well, I think you're right. Now, when you decided to take off on this march, you actually physically walked, correct?
Well, I walked for as far as I could before I had some pretty bad foot injuries. I definitely walked a couple 100 kilometers. And then when I got to Southern Ontario, there's a highway that joins all of the main cities in Southern Ontario, the 400 highway and the 401 highway. And while I was in Northern Ontario on highways that I was able to walk on, I did have pretty bad foot injuries near Huntsville. And I walked from Sudbury to North Bay, then North Bay to Huntsville, and that's where I had some pretty bad injuries on my feet. There's pictures and videos of my feet, and I've had Canadian military soldiers say that my feet are the worst they've ever seen. They've never seen trench foot even that looked that bad. So I knew that my feet were done, and I stuck my thumb out. I didn't stick my thumb out any time before that, but that time I knew I had to get off that highway because there was a pretty bad storm. It was hitting me all day, and I was soaked from head to toe. My feet, I couldn't do anything really. I could walk in my bare feet maybe, but there was blisters that were a couple inches off my foot. Like that's how high the blisters were off my feet, and there was torn skin. There's veins coming out in the one part, so it was pretty beat up, and that's just from walking, you know, just straight up walking.
That's pretty brutal, Mark. Pretty brutal. Well, hang on through this break, and we'll be right back. And you're listening to The Truth Traveler. Welcome back to the Truth Traveler radio show, and our guest is Mark Howitt, and we were discussing his March of Freedom across part of Canada, and your feet sound like a mess, Mark. I don't know if I could take that real well, but wow, that's very painful.
Yeah, they're definitely pretty worn down from the walking. But like I was saying before the break, that's why I had to stick my thumb out, because at that point I knew I couldn't walk anymore, and my feet, they were so damaged that I just had to get to the nearest big community, I guess, that had a hospital or a doctor. I did go to the hospital just to get them looked at to make sure that everything was okay and stuff. And I had some pretty sore muscles and tendons, and some of the bones in my feet were pretty sore too. But I was walking about 30 to 50 kilometers a day when I would do the walks. So it's pretty far. They say the average person walks about 35 kilometers a day, or they can walk up to 35 kilometers a day. So I was getting about average, or sometimes a bit more, just because I was really determined to get as far as I could, or to get to the next community that was there. Because when I did walk, they were pretty far apart, the towns. But when I got to major cities, I did travel around on buses, because I had seminars and speaking arrangements that I had to be at on certain dates and stuff like that. So I had to make sure that I was there on time for those. So
So you had things lined up to do along the way. Okay, that's cool.
Yeah,
you gave seminars. Did you notice a lot of the people? I know you'll release all this, but when you stopped and would talk to these people, most of them you said were kind of waking up, maybe not totally aware, but they were waking up, and they understood why you were doing this and what your goals were.
Yeah, they were supportive. Yeah, most people were supportive. I only met a couple people that weren't really supporting it, but they didn't say anything, or they weren't rude about it or anything like that. You know, they just kind of rolled their eyes or something because of what I was talking about. They usually when people do that, they're either part of the problem or they
drank too much fluoride.
Yeah, there's something wrong, you know. They're a victim of the contagious apathy that exists in the world, I guess you could say.
That does seem to be occurring everywhere. But in all fairness, people are waking up, especially, I've gotten a lot of, I've actually had phone calls and texts, what's going on with this government shutdown, so, there are some things that are kind of stirring the pot a little bit. So, I think the elite are a little scared of us, and I think they are still running a little scared. I think that's why they're really pushing their agenda to try to get things in place, because so many people are waking up. Yeah, I think so. And even in the last 6 months, it's just like we're rolling downhill now.
Yeah, that's what actually kind of led me to leave to do the March for Freedom, was because there was all this stuff happening in Syria, and I know that what the media is telling us isn't true about that. You know what I mean? It's obvious who's funding the rebels and who's fighting with the rebels. It's obviously that there's obvious terror cells involved in there. So there's definitely some foul play going on, and when you've got the CIA funding them and giving them arms, and you've got United Nations supporting that's obviously a big problem there. And there was also so many other things happening around that time, like you had Edward Snowden coming forth, and mind you, he did give his testimony a couple months prior to that. But I just noticed that there was a big snowball happening, like everything was snowballing kind of, and I had a feeling inside of me like, you have to go now, and I did have an idea to do something like that for a little while, but not to do the reality show. That came later. That came actually just a couple weeks prior to leaving. But I did have a vision to like kind of walk somewhere. I was actually going to originally go to Ottawa, to Parliament Hill, just walk from Sudbury to Ottawa, and just stay on Parliament Hill and try to gather people for a protest or something. But that was, I think, in 2010 or 2011 I was planning on doing that, and I just never ended up doing that. So this was kind of like a little bit planned, but it definitely got developed in about a month prior to leaving. That's when I really knew that it was pretty much time to do it,
I think you're right. And I think right now we are at this pivotal point in history. And the more people that we can wake up and get prepared, and the more people that are aware of what's going on and realize the lies, we have a better chance of surviving all this as they bring this, this house of cards down around us.
And only we can do it. Only the individual themselves can do it. That's what
right.
It takes. It does. It's a decision that somebody has to make. It's a decision in their own mind that they have to make. Like, I'm going to do something about this, or I'm not going to do something about this. It's a simple decision, and if everybody was making the right decision, then I guarantee you all these globalist scum would be taken out of their thrones. Their thrones would be taken over by the public. That's what we need. We need public power to come back. And that's why government was really made in the first place, was to make sure that the public did have their power and their say, make sure everything was democratic and right, and everybody was, voting was going good, and people that were elected were actually elected because of what they were bringing to the table. But now it's just a big fiasco. You've got the prime ministers and presidents scamming the elections. It's all rigged now through computer systems. The presidents and prime ministers are all chosen now. They're selected. They're not elected. So there's a lot of problems going on, and all these people are getting busted for rigging elections, and it's just, we all know the truth now, and it's trying to think of the term for it. We've hit a crucial point, though. You're absolutely right, where people are waking up all over the world, and It's like that song, we're not going to take it.
It is. We're not going to take it. That's right. Now, let me ask you a question. Is your Prime Minister, Stephen Harper, is he just as bad as Obama? I mean, I know he's a globalist, okay? But is he as bad as Obama, just as evil? I mean, does the evil, resonate off of him? And just, I don't know, I can feel like his aura, like his vibes, his frequency, and it's just, I can hardly even look at the man. I don't even want to hear his voice. Is Harper like that?
Yeah, he's totally a globalist. He's got interest in resources, and that's what he's doing. He's exporting resources and profiting himself. He's a businessman. Essentially, presidents and prime ministers aren't there for the people. They're businessmen. They're making profits, and that's why they're put into place. And we don't have prime ministers or presidents anymore. We have dictators, or essentially, it's almost like a company or a corporation. Like, they are the president of that corporation. And I believe the countries are corporations. Canada and the United States are both corporations, and these people are actually the heads of these corporations. So, but really, there is a shadow government, though, running in the background that makes sure that these people stay in line and stuff. And that's through the Freemasons and the roundtable groups like Bilderberg and the Council of Foreign Relations,
CFR,
and stuff like that.
Yep, it's true. Now, Harper, in your documentary, you alluded to Harper, along with the Catholic Church, they were in collusion with the orphanage. The
residential school crimes.
Yes.
Yeah, so that wasn't during Harper's prime minister. He wasn't prime minister when that happened. This happened years ago. But there's still survivors today that are living victims of what happened at the residential schools here in Canada. And there was a guy, Kevin Annett, who came forward and actually gathered up a lot of victims, and they gave testimonies. And he has a documentary film called Unrepentant, and it explains it really well in detail about what these children went through at the schools. And it's just disturbing. And I know people too, because I'm from Canada. I'm in Northern Ontario. There's a lot of a native culture up here, and I've talked to people that had relatives that were at these boarding schools, and they were indeed abused and experimented on medically and stuff like that. So.
Well, there's a lot of evidence that points to the Nazi Dr. Mengele being actually up there under an assumed name. And I've heard that, too. Before watching your documentary, I've done some studying on that, or research, whatever you want to say. And I can imagine if he was up there, how bad it really was for those children. And it just makes me want to cry. Yeah,
if Mengele was here, I have a friend in Toronto, actually. Her name's Catherine. She sent me a couple photographs from a yearbook and an article, I believe, on that. And that's what got me looking into the Mengele connection here in Canada. And there's also Dr. Ewan Cameron, who is one of the main people in Canada here that was in charge of the MKUltra program. He was experimenting on children as well, using various methods. But he was here in Canada, Dr. Ewan Cameron, around the same time as Mengele. I think Mengele was just prior. So I think Mengele must have influenced Dr. Ewan Cameron here in Canada. That's my theory, anyways. I'm still looking for the evidence to connect those two, but there is photographs where it looks like they're standing together in photographs in front of these psychiatric hospitals. So that's why I'm really starting to believe that there was something deeper than what's been released already to the public here in Canada, in Quebec, because Quebec is that's where it was happening. And you've got the Duplessis orphans. That's another big thing that happened here in Canada, was there was Catholic children being taken away from their mothers. If there was a single mother who wasn't married, the Catholic Church thought that was wrong, so they took their children away. Or if their family was impoverished, if they didn't have enough money to support the family, the government would come in, take their children. It was kind of like Children's Aid, essentially, like what we have here in the CAS, Children's Aid Society. They were coming into people's homes and just taking children because they found out that it was very highly profitable to take these children away and put them in boarding schools and then experiment on them medically. They received huge amounts of money from the federal government to do this. And I was supposed to meet with somebody on the March of Freedom in Joliet, Quebec, named Rod Vineau. He actually wrote a book called Le Grand Noirceur, which means the Era of Darkness, and it's a book on the Duplessis tragedies. And that was happening under the leadership of Quebec Premier Maurice Duplessis. So he was allowing all this to happen, and he was actually lining it all up. And that's why they called them the Duplessis Orifice. They figure there's about 100,000 children that were taken away from their homes in Quebec and Canada, and then experimented on. And a lot of the stories that you hear from these victims are just heart-wrenching, disturbing, and it's kind of like what you're saying about Mengele being a Nazi and doing the experiments on over there in Germany during World War II. Well, it seems like he was allowed to come back
Mark,
over here.
Mark, hold that thought, because I'm going to explore this further on the other side of this break, and we'll be right back to the Truth Traveler. Welcome back to the Truth Traveler, and our guest tonight is Mark Howitt. And you can find his information at the YouTube channel Mark Howitt or worldpublicunion.org. You'll find the links on the Truth Traveler. You can get to his stuff there. Now, before the break, we were discussing those lovely little Nazi doctor, Mengele, that came over to your wonderful country and proceeded to experiment on children, which is just so dastardly in itself. But the stuff that they did, I mean, I haven't researched this, Mark, so you have to tell me. It's like they were a whole part of the CIA, the learning how to break people, to totally, like, make a new person out of it, like totally, like, wipe the hard drive clean and start over.
Yes, psychic driving and stuff like that.
Yes.
Those are the techniques that Dr. Cameron was using and teaching other doctors to do. And it's brainwashing. That's what it was, exactly like you said. It was washing the slate clean. Like they're a newborn baby, starting them over in life again and teaching them new things, and they'd forget about their past. It's pretty crazy that they can do that in the 50s and 60s. Imagine what they can do now, because technology is always about 100 years behind. So,
well, I don't know. Look at James Holmes and all the other little shooters we've had too. Speaking of which, wait a minute. I want to get back to this, but if I don't say this, I'll forget. The Orion project that Bill Cooper talked about.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if many people know what that is. You want to explain it to people?
Yeah, it's very hard to find information about the CIA's Project Orion, but it's essentially about taking somebody and drugging them, psychotropic drugging, getting them involved in programs, and essentially programming their minds like a Manchurian Candidate, essentially, but using drugs and psychotropic drugs and hypnosis and stuff like that, and getting people to shoot children at schoolyards. That was the plot behind the Project Orion, and that was to make people infuriated and give up their gun rights. So,
and look where we are now.
Mm-hmm. I think Bill Cooper was right about a lot of things, and I've read his book, Behold a Pale Horse, and it's
I too.
Definitely he was bang on about a lot of things, and rest in peace, my friend, wherever you are.
That's sure. Right. That's why they got him, because he was telling too much of the truth. But and you talked in the documentary too about Mark Taylor.
Yeah.
And I hadn't seen the video clips that you played with before he was incarcerated in the quote-unquote psychiatric hospital and after. Those to me were incredible.
Mm-hmm.
Incredible. The difference.
That's Orion in action right there.
It is. People have got to see that. That was just like, it was one of those Wow, they really did a number on his brain.
Yeah, he wrote a book and he forgot about it.
Yeah.
Like, how do you forget about a book he wrote?
You saw the way he kept turning his head, and he was like fidgeting with his beard, and wow. I mean, it makes me wonder what his mom thinks about all this.
Yeah. She's actually trying to get him out. I'm not sure if she actually did. I haven't really checked up on that in the last couple months anyways. But I know she was trying to get him out because they wouldn't release him. So that's what she's been fighting for. She just wants him out, and apparently once he's out, she wants him to be safe, and she's probably going to take him somewhere where this kind of thing's not going to happen again. But
well, do you think
I
they
was
did
actually
that?
trying to get a hold of her. What's that?
It would be interesting if you did get a hold of her. But do you think they came after him in the manner that they did because he talked about the shooters on the roof?
Well, I think it's also because he testified against the FDA and he won. So that's pretty hard to do too. Not many people do win against that because they have the resources and the money, and they're lethal when it comes to the legal system. I have friends who have told me about things that they've gone through personally with the healthcare system and the legal aspect of those things, and it's ruthless. It really is.
I feel really bad for the guy. He's been through enough, and they just totally. It's just like they pick you up and incarcerate you in a psychiatric hospital and throw away the key.
Yeah, Brandon Raub had the same thing.
Who?
Brandon Raub, the former U.S. Marine.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, he was posting on his Facebook, and they took him out of his home pretty quick and tried to brainwash him, too.
They seem to be, they're good at this. Okay, hey, we have our long break, and then some commercials, and we'll be right back. And you're listening to The Truth Traveler. The Truth Traveler. I'm Erin Dakins, your guide for tonight as we travel into the planet, America, Canada, the messes that we're in. And our guest tonight is Mark Howitt, and you can find his information, his YouTube channel, Mark Howitt, or you can go to worldpublicunion.org and see what you can do to take part, because if we don't take part and keep doing something, waking people up, bringing people into the fold, alerting people, standing up, we're not going to have anything to stand up for because we're going to be on our knees. And that's the point that we're at. Because right now the globalists are pushing and pushing and pushing. And if you can't see it with the Democrats and Obamacare and all this circus that they're playing out before your eyes, it's a diversion. I want you to keep watching what's going on behind the scenes because I don't know what they're up to. But there is something afoot for all this drama to be playing out before the American people. Now, Mark, right before the break, we were talking about Mark Taylor and that Marine guy. Rob, what's his first name?
Yeah, Brandon Raub.
That's it. Thank you. I had a brain spasm there for a moment. You know, and what they've done to him. So why don't you tell the listeners and share that with them a little bit?
Oh, well, I don't think Brandon Raub accepted the brainwashing treatment. I know that they were trying to get him to take medication, but I don't think he actually did that. But I know Mark Taylor definitely became a victim of the pharmaceutical company, which is strange because he did win a case against the FDA in regards to the Columbine shooting. So he defeated them on one level, but then it seems like they came back and took him out because he was talking too much, I guess. And that's pretty common though. That's their solution. If you're stressed out or depressed or anything, you know, if you're too happy even, they'll try to give you a pill, and then that'll change your chemistry, that'll change your mindset, and it's not a good world to be in if you're on pharmaceutical or prescription drugs, especially antidepressants and stuff like that.
Well, they certainly do want to push their psychotropic drugs. I think it is just a way to keep the public dumb. Fat, dumb, and happy is what I say. And it's true. And, you know, Mark Taylor, he spoke out against the psychotropic drugs. Say that 10 times fast. And now look where he is. Mm-hmm. So they really did. There was an all-out assault on his soul, on his spirit. of who he was.
And that's the thing too. A lot of this is becoming the norm. It's insane. It's really insane. We're living in an insane world, and in my opinion, we're all insane. We have to be to be sitting back. Like, we're not sitting back, me and you, and I'm sure a lot of the listeners out there are not sitting back and doing nothing. They're getting involved and speaking out, and at least teaching people about what's going on and helping them find answers. But there is a lot of people out there that just do not have a care in the world. They'll accept anything. It's like you're saying, the fluoride. Actually, a lot of the antidepressants are mostly made of fluoride, so
yes.
It's not good.
Well, look what they do with their children. Now, you have 2 little children. Now, my youngest is almost 17, but I've had 4. So, with the children these days, it's ADD, ADHD. It's all of these quote unquote mental issues that these children have, and the issue, oh my goodness, the issue that these children have is you take this child that's vibrant and full of life, especially the little boys. That seems to be like the target is the little boys. The little boys weren't designed or created to sit at a school desk for 8 hours a day and sit there calmly and absorb every word that teacher says. That's not how they were made or created. Yet, if they act normal, we consider them mentally ill, and we've got to put them on Ritalin as example, so we calm them down. Really? I mean, it is so beyond ridiculous what they're doing to everybody. And, you, the listener out there, you know this. So, we just speak our minds a lot of times. Now, we don't go up in public and make a big, well, my husband would if he could, if I'd let him, make a big scene. But we do talk about things to the public, and that's what it is. And you don't have to bombard somebody with everything like we have bases on Mars, okay? And they'll think you're an idiot. But you can go up and say, hey, the economy, man, it's just, I feel like this recession is never going to end. I mean, you can make a comment like that to start a conversation. And then you can point them to anybody's website that you want, anybody's radio show. I don't care. Any of the alternative media, and have them start looking at Drudge. Okay? And they're going to start to see stuff where they don't see in the mainstream media. That's all you have to do is plant the seed. That's all you got to do.
Yeah, you're right. Totally. And another thing too that's really important to point out is the fact that if we don't do anything, they're just gonna keep trampling all over us. You know what I mean? And that's what's going on. They are trampling all over us, and a lot of people aren't doing anything about it. And I think one of the most important things we could do is to pull back from that system, to not buy the GMO foods, to not buy major corporations' products, to stay away from any major corporations and sinking any money into them, make them lose their stocks, drown them out, starve them out. There's so many ways that we could make a difference in that aspect just by not contributing, non-compliance. And that non-compliance with Obamacare, okay? Go the alternative method. Go natural like I like to do. Now, yes, I took Brad to the hospital. I got some medications. But am I going to take part in Obamacare? No. I think that the doctors and hospitals can be used for diagnostic purposes, and then you treat naturally, okay? I think that if you have a problem, whether you think it's I don't know, whether you think you've got cancer or a hernia or, whatever. I think you need to have diagnostics. I think that doctors do have that purpose within reason. Don't let them ran you through an MRI 20 times, okay? Yeah. But, man, treat yourself naturally. Get away from the pharmaceuticals. That's the key right there. Don't let them suck you into Obamacare. And, there's a, I don't know if you saw it, but I lost it. I'll find it again. Hang on a second. There's a headline up on Drudge, and it's everywhere. I'm sure you guys have heard it since you all listen to talk radio, that they're going to start taking Obamacare fines to be seized from bank accounts. Okay. Yeah. That's a headline on Drudge. Obamacare fines to be seized from bank accounts. Now, that could almost set my blood pressure to skyrocket to the boiling point, because don't you dare touch the money in our accounts. That is not your money to touch. That is mine. It's not the banks, even though you passed that law saying the banks own your money. I call BS to that. And that's the thing. People, you're going to start being hit in your pocketbooks. And when you get hit in your pocketbooks, you're going to get just ticked off enough that you might get off the couch. So that's what we got to do. We got to get off the couches. We got to quit steering those couches because they're not going anywhere.
We got to get out and talk to people. Got to hand out flyers, and I don't care what you hand out flyers on. Find something that you have a passion for. I know, we hand out geoengineering flyers because they're beautiful. There is a beautiful flyer, and that gets people's attention. Yeah. Then they go from there. That's what you got to do. Tell people, send an email out with a link to Mark's video, New World Order, NWO, Domino Effect. Send a link out to your email buddies, to your friends and family. Say, hey, watch this. This is really good. You're just planting the seed. If they don't want to watch it, they don't have to, but you tried.
Yeah, planting the seeds is all we can do. And the rest is up to them, because it's just like when we're children, we're brought up and we're raised by our parents, and our parents teach us what's right and wrong, and they teach us how to walk and how to talk and how to eat and how to do everything, essentially. So that proves right there that the human being, the human mind, essentially, is moldable. So it's easily moldable, even when you're older. I'm sure when people grow up and they start getting I guess you could say, a solid viewpoint on what they believe is true and false, I guess, or they have their own opinions on things, then it is a little bit harder to sway somebody. But you got to get them when they're young, too. Like, I teach my children the truth about things. When they ask about the Queen, they ask, what's a Queen? And I tell them, well, a long time ago, kings and queens were going into other countries and killing all the people there and all the native people and killing them, and they were taking over different countries because they wanted to rule the world. It was a game of risk. And my kids know that the Queen is bad and the government's bad and they're tyrants, and I teach them that. And when they play with their toys, the bad guy is always the government or always the Queen. That's the way they play when they're playing with their toys. The bad guy is always the government,
That's what we do. My kids all know the truth too. Okay, we've never hid anything from them, so they know it. And that's what you got to do. Even with the older people too, guys, you can make inroads. And my mom thought I was nuts. When Brad was in Iraq, my mom seriously thought I was crazy. She thought I needed to seek mental help, okay?
My mom
she even told
so
Brad. Okay, well, she did. But then then I got into this. I retired from the vet clinic, started doing this stuff full time. Then she realized this, as I was telling her a little bit of time, she doesn't want to hear all the bad news all the time. But she knows what a bug out bag is. She's got prep foods. She knows if it gets really bad and I make that phone call, hey, okay, something's up.
Yeah.
I don't run her into the mud with it, okay? But she knows, and she doesn't think I'm crazy now at all. But it took years to do that. So it can be done even with the older generation. It can be done. It's just a matter of hitting the right button. And that's why your documentaries are so good to help wake people up, because they can go from that and then start researching different things that you bring up in that documentary. And the way you've connected the dots is really good for them too.
Yeah, because then it kind of forms a puzzle for them. Like, there's a bunch of pieces of the puzzle, but then at the end of the film, when you're done watching it, all the pieces fit together, and it forms a bigger picture, and then you can understand how those pieces lock together and figure out how to make the puzzle complete, And that's really important, because a lot of people's minds are shattered. There are a million pieces, and you got to put that back together and get the power back to yourself, because a lot of people, they feel that they're helpless. They feel that they can't make a difference, and there's nothing they can do. But there really is so much we could do, whether it be writing emails to our representatives, or emailing them, sending letters out, phone bombing, campaigns, going out and hitting the streets and hitting the pavement with some signs, or handing out flyers, anything. There's so much we could do, and all that stuff really does help.
Anything helps. Anything helps. That we've got that overpass. I can't remember the name of it. So you can find it. It's not even on Facebook now, I don't think. Anyway, they hold signs and impeach Obama down from overpasses. That was a young crowd. It's probably your age group that did that. Okay, more power to them. Hey, go for it. That's fantastic. That's what we all need to do. Just speak out your mind. We were all given minds. We were given our soul. We've got to use it. We've got to exercise our mouths, okay? Get them flapping. We'll be right back after this break to the Truth Traveler. Hey, welcome back to the Truth Traveler, and our guest tonight is Mark Howitt. And I have to call attention to another article on Drudge, because I can't help it. It caught my attention. But right now for this one, y'all need to put your tinfoil hat on and join Erin as we travel through the conspiracy meteor field, okay? Because the headline, and I'm sure you've heard it, is Tom Clancy, best-selling author, master of military thrillers, dies at 66 of a brief illness. Where can you go on that monkey trail? Because I could say, did somebody get to him? Because unfortunately, he has a very savvy way of figuring things out that he probably shouldn't have figured out and writing about them. So, I don't know. Maybe some new thing he was working on, maybe they got wind of it, didn't like it. I don't know. But I have to have my conspiracy hat on, my tinfoil hat for that one, because I have to wonder. Right now, all I can tell you is, sometimes if you don't look at some of these headlines and kind of chuckle because they're so absurd, you just want to cry, because it's so out of control. Another one, Fukushima operator says another tank leaking toxic water. Fukushima, guys, come on. I mean, the world is falling apart.
Yeah. Even the farmers there, they're saying that the crops they're growing and shipping out, they won't even eat it, and they don't test it. So that's brutal, because they're a major rice harvester in the world, and they're sending out, I believe it was farmers of brown rice it was, and it was all contaminated, and they didn't have the meters to test it, and they're still told to ship it out. So they're shipping out contaminated rice.
Nice. And see, I want to get one of those little meters. They're like $150, but anyway. There's no way that's
pretty scary that they're allowing all this to happen. It's like you were saying at the beginning of the show. It's like they're escalating it on purpose because they know that we're waking up more and more, and now they're just trying to bombard us with all these distractions to make sure that their end game is met. So, and I think I know they're trying to they're doing the one world government system. That's what they're trying to instill. They want to destroy and collapse as many governments as they can to bring in one global government, so that and one global currency as well, one global everything, one global healthcare system, one global education, all that stuff, just so that they can control us all collectively. So it's pretty crazy, because a couple thousand years ago we weren't that bad. There was still rulers and kingdoms and people that were ruled by like a few ruled over many, essentially. But now, because of the internet, we can connect so much more now, that they're totally utilizing that to their advantage, and they are trying to get in this one world government system as fast as they can. And I think the Georgia Guidestones kind of outlined what some of their goals were.
I think so too. And it gives you a whole new respect for the Bible, because the Bible told us this was going to happen, and everybody said, "Oh, that's impossible." Mm-hmm. And look where we are now. We have the UN, we have Agenda 21. We're all linked together, and every country that the United States and Israel or whoever is going after, they're going according to their program, in quotes. Mm-hmm. Syria's in there, Iran. I mean, it's just, we've got more stuff. The Russian embassy attacked in Libya. I mean, are we just stupid and suicidal?
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. And I don't think... I think that they're allowing all this violent music to come out in violent movies, violent television programs, so that we think that that's normal. You know what I mean? So that we're programmed into accepting that as a way of life. And really, that's not the way people are. Like, there is some violent people, obviously, and those people are criminals. They should be dealt with criminally, because if they're going to harm another person, that's a crime, in my opinion. They should be detained for that. Even ill intentions, if somebody's, glad and hopeful that there's war happening or that there's people suffering, that's a sign of the programming that they're instilling in people today. And it's as I mentioned earlier, it's a contagious apathy. It's a contagious thing. And that's why a lot of people, they'll watch it on the news. They'll sit there all night watching the news, watching people get killed in wars and stuff, and they just don't do anything. They just, they go to work the next day, and they forget about it, and they just go about their day, and it's a scary world.
Well, I like the contagious apathy. I think that's good, and they are programming you through the TV programs, and the violent video games are just horrendous anymore. So, what do you expect this generation to be like? A bunch of little violent narcissists. Okay, we've got another break. We'll be right back to the Truth Traveler. Welcome back to the Truth Traveler and our guest, Mark Howitt. Now, Mark, I want to ask you a question just because I'm curious. Up in Canada, you all have a government health care plan. Is it similar to Obamacare? Do you know?
I'm not sure if it's similar. What we have in my province, anyways, is OHIP. It's Ontario Health Coverage. That's provincial health coverage, and if you're here, it does cover a lot of things, like when you if you need a checkup or if you break a bone, you go to the hospital, you get your bone fixed. So it is good in that kind of aspect, but you still have to pay for pharmaceuticals if you don't have coverage from your work, or if you need anything, any medications or any supplies or anything for your illness or injury, then you'd still have to pay that from I guess you go to a drugstore or pharmaceutical store or something to pick that stuff up. But that's not covered with the coverage. So I'm not sure if Obamacare is the same as that. But another thing too is we don't pay for ours though. So Obamacare, I believe you guys would have to pay for that.
We haven't even figured all that out yet. I don't. Okay. We've got death panels and everything else in ours. So. And they even have a provision in there where they're going to arm the IRS agents to come out and inspect house to house if you homeschool, if you're a veteran, if you smoke, a couple other, if you're on any kind of governmental assistance program, they just have the right to come in and, I guess, do whatever they want. My guess is they want to especially target the veterans and gun owners. Gun owners was in there too. Really? Well, why would all those be targeted?
That's not happening in Canada that I'm aware of.
I guarantee the first few vets that they try to do that to and they try to confiscate those weapons, there's going to be a war on this ground.
Oh, yeah. You don't mess with the vets in America, that's for sure. I know that for certain.
You don't. And here's the thing that these little 1% cronies aren't thinking about is, I can tell you from being married to one that the vets are really getting irritated by everything. So, keep poking that bear and see what happens is what I say.
Yeah, like you guys have the oath breakers.
Oath keepers.
Oath keepers, sorry. And there's also, a lot of the veterans don't actually get good treatment. They go through a lot of things when they do go to war. They're not told the truth on why they're going there. A lot of people are doing it to receive a paycheck or to get an education out of it. There's always a reason for somebody joining the military and going overseas and serving. But when they come back and they have served such a cause, when they're not taken care of it, when they need medical attention or they need, there's a lot of, war is not easy. I'm sure anybody who's, I'm not going to say that I've been to war because I haven't, but any veteran or anybody who has been to war, they go through a lot of mental and psychological things over there. It just changes them, I've seen lots of documentaries on it, and I've talked to people too, and as soon as you come back, you're a different person, and when they're screwing you over and they're not giving you what you need, if you have medical conditions or even just the respect level, after somebody serves their government and their country and then they're not respected by that government, it's definitely a huge offensive, I think.
Well, it is, and they actually target the veterans. The MIAC report that came out, 4 or 5 years ago, 3 years ago, the veterans are the number one enemy of the state, shall I say it that way, according to our quote-unquote government. And here, they're part of the VA system, the Veterans Administration system. The medical care is not great. They're kind of treated like crap, and they're targeted. And it's not right. But then again, the veterans are the ones that are going to help us all get through this. That's right. They are. They are.
That's why they're targeted, because they're the ones that are standing up, because they have, I don't know, they're not going to take it. I guess that's the quote of the day. They're not going to take it, because that's what I see happening anyways. There's a lot of veterans now that are starting to see that what they did or why they were over there isn't the reason what they were told. There's all sorts of reasons why they're upset now, and I think they have every right to be.
Well, I think they do too, and I think it's just another symptom of the disease that's going on, just like everything else we've talked about tonight. Mm-hmm. I'm going to go back to your Prime Minister, Stephen Harper, because I think he's about as slimy as Obama.
Yeah, he prorogued Parliament recently for a fourth time.
He did what?
He prorogued Parliament for a fourth time. So when I was on the march, actually, this is pretty interesting, because when I was on the march, I announced that I was going to go to his house and deliver a letter to his house, because I know that if I sent it in the mail, it would probably get seen by somebody else and it wouldn't reach him. So I wanted to go to his front doorstep and deliver a letter to him that I wrote on Parliament Hill. And it's not a letter directed towards Stephen Harper directly, but it's a letter to all leaders of the world, all political leaders for every country. And I wanted to make sure that it got to his house. And when a couple days before I got there, I heard that he was in northern Canada doing a tour similar to what I was doing. He wanted to go around to the different provinces and talk to Canadians about what's concerning them, and I think he's fearing that he's not going to get elected again. So he's out campaigning and stuff like that. But it's just and then I hear about the proroguing again. There's just so many problems with Stephen Harper. He's selling Canada up the creek, and he doesn't care about anything except money. That's my opinion on Stephen Harper. He doesn't care about anything. He doesn't care about the results of what might happen with his actions, anything like that. He just has no concern. And I think most people have to be in that state of mind if they're going to be a political leader of an entire country, because they have to accept the rules and regulations to be put in that place. So
he's just part of the buddy system, the cronies, the 1%. He is now. Yeah. I don't know. When I think about Canada, in some ways, I think you're more restricted on your health care options as far as natural items. It's a real issue sometimes to send some stuff into Canada. But,
you're right.
In other ways,
there's a lot of things that you have to go to the States to get.
Yeah, exactly. I know people that carry that have post office boxes on the other side into the United States, and they'll just drive across and get their stuff and go back. Mm-hmm. But in some ways, you're more free than we are. I don't think you have the drones flying over your head all the time.
No.
I don't think you have all the cameras that we do.
Mm-hmm. You're right. You're absolutely right. I am proud to be living in Canada right now, because our government isn't as extreme as America's government, I would say. They're not involved on the global level as much. Even though Stephen Harper is a globalist, he does partake in the whole globalist agenda and stuff. But at the same time, it's not as extreme here in Canada. It is a lot more toned down, more relaxed. We don't have, like what you were explaining to me about Obamacare, where they're going to go to everybody's house, and we don't have stuff like that here. Even when I was walking on the March of Freedom.
You're also not going into other countries and taking them over.
Exactly. I mean, we aid in that, though. I mean, if America or England, or United Kingdom, rather, those are usually the two countries that are provoking the colonization anyways. And then Canada is always piggybacking on that. So we've definitely had troops in other countries supporting the actions that are going on there. But at the same time, it's not as as full force, and we usually don't. I guess Canada doesn't usually announce it until later and stuff.
Now, do you guys up there? Do you guys support Israel like we do? You know, with their genocide and everything that Israel does. I don't. I never really heard Canada put in there like America. Like we have to. I can't say that on air. We have to do everything that Israel says. Okay.
Yeah, and Canada as well. I know we've supported Israel quite a bit. But not as much as America. Like, America and Israel, I believe, are allied, for sure, through their intelligence agencies, Mossad and CIA, as well as the NSA, I'm sure. And then Canada...
financially, too.
Yeah, totally financially. And it's quite interesting, too, that America and Canada are pretty much the only countries left in the world that are mass fluoridated. I know in United Kingdom it is too, but our populations are being fluoridated the most out of anybody in the entire world. So it's Canada and America that has the most percentage of water fluoridation.
Well, they just want to keep us stupid and docile, I guess.
Mm-hmm. They fear us. That's why they do it.
I think so. I think you're right.
I think.
And if you people remember that, if they fear, that's right, they fear the 99%. You got to remember that in your heads, guys, because it's so critical. You know, we're going to run out of time before I get to this, so let's just jump right into James Holmes a little bit, because I at least want to touch on it, because we're going to run out of time.
I made a film about James Holmes, actually, the James Holmes Conspiracy.
Yes. So give us it in a nutshell. We're going to hit the break here real quick, but I'll let you finish up on the other side a little bit. Just give it in a nutshell what you found out.
Well, there's many things I did find out, and if anybody has the time, I would suggest to check out the film I made called The James Holmes Conspiracy. It explains a lot of what I found, the police audio, them looking for another suspect. James Holmes was just outside in his car. He got arrested after. He was willing to get arrested, and then you watch him in court. He's showing severe signs of handling. That's the term for it. Mm-hmm. When they wash your brain, essentially. But nobody saw him shooting in the theater, because the person that they described seeing in the theater shooting was dressed from head to toe in bulletproof gear, in riot gear, essentially, wearing a gas mask, so nobody saw the face, nobody saw the skin of the person or anything like that. So it could have been anybody shooting rounds in there, and then he just happened to be outside waiting. And there's so many other anomalies with that case. If anybody's got the time to check out the film, I would say to check it out, because in my opinion, he was set up as a patsy to do that. And I even wrote a letter to the Innocence Project of Colorado. And
hold that thought, Mark. Hold that thought. We're going to break. We'll be right back for the last segment on The Truth Traveler for this evening. Welcome back to The Truth Traveler. I'm your guide for this evening, Erin Dakins, and our guest has been Mark Howitt. You can find his information at his YouTube channel, Mark Howitt. The YouTube channel, Mark Howitt. You'll find it. And his website, one of them, is worldpublicunion.org. He also has Facebook pages, so look him up. There's links up on The Truth Traveler for you to find him. Now, Mark, we're going to, just touch briefly on the James Holmes. I think he's a patsy, too. I don't think he had anything to do with it. But he sure did look like he'd been handled from some of those pictures, didn't he?
Yeah, and all the evidence points totally towards that they're trying to cover it all up. That he was just all part of the plan, and I actually wrote a letter to the Innocence Project, explaining my documentary and the information that I uncovered, and trying to get them to take a look at it, and I never received the reply back yet. And it's interesting too to point out that there was a reporter that went to one of his trial appearances. It was one of the earlier ones, and she posted post-it notes to with a link to the documentary that I made all over the woman's bathroom in the courthouse. And
wow.
They discovered all these Post-it notes, and they were wondering what was going on. And the local paper ran a brief story. It was a local, I know it was one of the local news groups that was covering the trial. They did an article on it, and they totally slandered me and cut me up in the article, saying that I'm a paranoid conspiracy theorist, the usual, you know. Mm-hmm. And I actually contacted them and said, hey, do you want to talk about my film? Like, here's my phone number. Give me a call if you want. And the girl who wrote the article called me back, and we talked for 2 hours. And I believe she recorded the conversation. I really wish that I would have, because I told her some things that some people told me. You know, like I had one person tell me that she's related to one of the jail guards, and he told her information that was very specific. And you know, I told the girl at the paper that, and she didn't run the article. That's for sure. She didn't.
Wow.
I think I was pressing too many buttons and hitting too many truths about what was going on and bringing up really valid questions. And I think it scared her, and she just didn't want to print the article. So that's what happens if you're speaking on the truth. You usually don't get heard too much. That's what I've noticed.
You got to stay out there in the public. You got to stay out there in the eye.
Yeah, you got to make a big loud noise in the forest that everybody hears you.
That's right. Well, you know, we don't have time to get into this, but Judith Vary Baker, she stayed quiet for what, 25 years? Judith Vary Baker, for the listeners, if you don't know, she wrote the book Lee and Me, and it's about basically how she created the weaponized cancer. They're right, because they wanted to. Remember, I mentioned it too. It was Castro they wanted to kill. You know, so they've used this multiple times since then. The SV40 vaccine, the SV40 monkey virus is in the vaccines. But she actually left the country, and Judith Vary Baker stayed quiet for a long time. I think she waited, you know, a good long time. She thought, well, maybe she's safe. So then she wrote a book. So she's more out there now, and maybe, hopefully, a little bit protected that way. But if you haven't read that book, check it out.
On her life.
Yes.
For speaking out against this stuff. And it's scary, you know, like if you're speaking out against this stuff and you're trying to make a better world and spread awareness about important issues like weaponized cancer, and then they're trying to kill you, that's the kind of world we're living in. That must mean that she's telling the truth, right?
Well, she's over target, and I bet she doesn't want to open too many doors, does she? Watch those door handles, they'll get you. You know, they have so many weapons right now, guys. I mean, they could give you a heart attack with just this little weapon. It's a special frequency that it beams at you to give you a heart attack. So, I mean, it's out there. There's multiple different ways to kill people that nobody will ever know. Yeah,
that's what the CIA specializes in, is finding ways to kill somebody so that it's not detectable.
Wow, wouldn't that be a cool job? And I'm being very facetious. So, you know, it is, you know, even in Canada. See, that's what people don't understand. Mexico, the United States, and Canada, we're all linked together. We're on this continent. Yeah. And if we go down, unfortunately, we're dragging a lot of other people with us. Yeah.
And that's the thing. I think there is a lot of people in Canada, though, that are aware of what's going on. And I know myself, I wouldn't let that happen, you know. If something were to happen tomorrow, I'd be right on the front lines with everybody else, being a part of the Great Revolution.
Well, that's where we're headed. That is where we're headed. So, everybody, you know, I talk about preparedness a lot on the show, or I'm trying to, because I have this overwhelming need to get that information out to people. So, thank you, Mark Howitt, for being a guest tonight. I thoroughly enjoyed the interview.
Yeah, myself as well. It's always great talking with you, Erin, for sure.
You too. You take care of yourself, Mark, and be safe. And catch us here tomorrow night as we talk to retired Sheriff Mike Raines from Michigan about what's going on in America. Thank you for listening to Truth Traveler.